Welcome to the 4.2 presentation for individualized algebra. And today we're going to be revisiting and redoing linear equations and putting them into slope-intercept form in a couple of ways. One, just filling in the slope and intercept, and then another one doing it if I give you the slope and I give you a point. And then a third one would be doing it by looking at a graph where you've got to figure out the slope and then pick your point. So here we go. So this is a line here. This is y equals 2x plus 1. And this is an example that you guys have seen before. So I'll just highlight this line here. And the 2x plus 1, there's two parts to this, this equation. The first part here is this 2. This 2 here is referring to how much tiltiness this line has. In this case, it's got a tiltiness of 2, or if we put that into math, 2 over 1. So for every y that goes up 2, it's going to go over an x of 1. So if I start at this point and I go up 2 spots and I go over 1, it hits here. If I go up 2 parts and I move over 1, it hits here. And if I go up 2 more parts and go over 1, it hits here. And if I fill up with 2 more parts here and go over 1, it hits here. So the slope of this line is 2. It goes up 2 for every 1 it goes over. And when I'm reading the line from left to right, it's going up. So this is a positive slope. And then the other number that we're looking at in this equation is this 1. And this 1 is standing for the y-intercept, or b. In this case, where does this cross the y-axis? And this line crosses the y-axis right here at 1. So this equation is y equals 2x plus 1. The 2 is the slope, and the 1 is where it crosses the y-axis. And if we have those two pieces of information, we can work with and we can graph lines. So let's take a look at some examples. So here, write an equation of the line with the given slope and the y-intercept. So the slope is 4, so the tiltiness of the line is 4, and that's our m. And that 4 is going to go here. And then our b is -6. So our b is where it crosses the y-axis, and it's at -6, so it's going to go here. So the equation of this line is going to be y equals 4x minus 6. The m is 4, so these have to match. And then the b is -6, and these match. So that's how we do this type of problem. Let's do one a little bit more involved. So what is the equation of this line? So I've got this line right here, and it's crossing here at 0, -5, and it's crossing at 10, 0. So the very first thing we're going to have to do is figure out the slope. And our equation for slope is the change in y over the change in x. So I take the difference in my y's over the difference of my x's. So I'm just going to use this point to start with. So I'm going to do the difference of my y's first. My y is going from 0 to -5. So I'm going to go 0 minus -5. And 0 minus -5 is 5. Now I'm going to take a look at my x's. My x is going from 10 to 0, okay? So 10 to 0. So I'm going to take 10 minus 0. 10 minus 0 is 10, and I'm going to get 10. So my slope is 5 over 10, but that's something I can simplify. That's a fraction that's, I can simplify that. And 5 over 10 simplifies to 1 over 2. So the next thing I need to do is, in this case, just look at the y-intercept. In this case, the y-intercept is very easy to see. It's crossing the y-axis right here at -5. This is where it's touching the y-axis. So I can fill in my equation right now. I've got the slope at 1/2. My b, or where it's crossing the y-axis, is -5. So my equation then is going to be y equals 1/2 x minus 5. So my m is 1/2, that's my slope, and my b, or my y-intercept, is -5. So that's how I do this problem. Okay, Let's take a look at this one. This one's a little bit more involved, a little bit more advanced, but I think it's something you can handle. So I'm given the line here, and I've given a couple of points. What I need to do is figure out the equation of this line. So I'm going to do the slope first. So I'm going to take my y's first. So 4 minus 1, that's my y. And 4 minus 1 is 3. And then I'm going to do my x's. So I'm going to have 3 minus negative 3. And remember, when we minus two negatives, that becomes a positive. So this becomes 3 plus 3 is 6. And then 3 over 6 simplifies, and this simplifies to 1 over 2. So a simpler fraction of 3/6 is 1/2. Now in this case, I want to figure out where it's crossing the y-axis, but you'll notice it's crossing in between these 2 points here. So I can't just look at this. I'm going to actually have to calculate this. So I'm going to fill it into y equals mx plus b. So which point do I use? Well, I could use negative 3, 1, but I don't want to use that point because it's got a negative in it. So I'm going to use this point right here. I'm going to use 3, 4. That way I don't have any negatives in my point, and it'll make it easier to fill it in. So I fill in the equation. My y is 4, so y goes into here. My m, or my slope, is 1/2, and that goes into here. My x is 3, and that goes into here. So that leaves me with the equation 4 equals 1/2 times 3 plus b. So I take 3 times a half, and that's going to give me 3/2. So then I'm left with 4 equals 3/2 plus b. I need to figure out what b is, so I'm going to subtract 3/2 from both sides. I'm going to subtract 3/2 from the right side, and I'm going to subtract 3/2 from the left side. So 3/2 and the 3/2 here, this is going to cancel, and this is going to go away and leave me with just b. And if I take 4 minus 3/2, that's going to leave me with 2.5, because 4 minus 1.5 is 2.5. So my equation then becomes y equals 1/2 x plus 2.5. So this one was a little challenging. Your assignment isn't going to have something quite this difficult, but I still wanted you to see it because I think many of you can handle this. All right, let's try a different style problem now. So in this case, I'm giving you a point and I'm giving you the slope. So all you've got to do is fill it in to figure out the b and then write the equation. So the point is -2, -1. My slope is -3. All I do is fill my parts in. So -3 goes into m, -1 goes into y, -2 goes into x. And I'm getting an equation that looks like this. So then my y is -1, my m is -3, my x is -2, and I'm just going to work this out. So I'm going to take -3 times -2. -3 times -2 is 6. So then I'm left with -1 equals 6 plus b. And now to solve this, I'm going to have to subtract 6 from both sides. So I subtract 6 here. I subtract 6 here. My 6's are going to cancel. And my b is going to be left with -7. So my equation is going to be y equals, and then I just fill in my m, which was already given to me at -3, and my b is 7. And that's how we handle a problem like this. So this is one I feel you can do. All right, let's try it again. So in this case, the given point is -3, 0, and my slope is positive 1/3. Apologize for that. So I just fill it in. Y is going to have 0, m is going to have 1/3, and x is going to have -3. So it looks just like this. And now I'm just going to work it out to figure out what my b is. So 1/3 times -3 is -1. And now to figure out b, I'm going to add 1 to both sides. This will cancel. And my b is 1. So my equation then is y equals 1/3 x plus 1. Alrighty. So let's do one more example. So in this case, my point is 2, -3, and my slope is 2. So we're going to just fill this in. My y is -3, my m is 2, and my x is 2. So -3 is -3. 2 times 2 is 4. All right, so I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides here. That'll cancel. And that'll leave my b at -7. So this equation is going to be y equals 2x minus 7. So that brings us to the end of our first presentation, first part of section 4.2. And I've got 2 assignments I'm going to want you to do. So Tuesday, I want you to do just problems 3, 4, and 7. And you don't need to send that to me in an email. Just keep hold of that for the day. And then the next day, on Wednesday, I want you to do problems 5, 6, and 12. When you've got both of these sets of problems done, so 3, 4, 7, 5, 6, and 12, at that point, then you can snap a photo of it and then email it to me, and that will count for 2 days of assignments. Thank you very much, and hopefully you found this presentation helpful. Have a great rest of your day.